What's this? A nooner with me, Dave LaMont? Yeah, unbelievably. Let me adjust this microphone. Here we go. Yeah, it's been a while, been a long while. I appreciate that I'm still getting followers. I've hit the 900 mark on the Facebook page I set up for this. So I really deeply appreciate that. And I apologize for being so absent. I've mentioned the last time I spoke and did this, which was months ago, that my schedule has changed. At 12 o'clock, I'm in a classroom. It's hard to do this live, and it just became very difficult to do, and I didn't have the time to record it. I'm going to start finding the time to do this more frequently, maybe once a week rather than twice a week as I initially did it. But yeah, I do want to keep doing this. Even if I have 5 people watching or 500 people watching, if I've got something to say, this seems like a pretty good place to do it. So, or even something to promote, like, I don't know, Dania Beach High Life, for example. But I wanted to talk about a few topics today. And first off, if you don't know this already, some wonderful news about Damar Hamlin and his health. And I'm just reading this, just saw this on the phone right before I sat down, that he is now speaking. Tubes are out. He spoke to his team. This is absolutely unbelievable when you consider where we were just a few nights ago and all of the uncertainty about his life, the quality of his life. What was that going to be like? And this is, just the best possible news. That how could you see this coming? I don't know. I'm not a doctor, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about today. But to see Hamlin, back and conscious, still obviously a ways to go. This event is, as we all know, extraordinarily serious. I keep turning away so I can find the exact and find out how to hold a microphone. I told you it's been a while. Just to get the exact wording on the story that I saw earlier, and probably this is the best place to go. Yeah, here we go. Damar Hamlin, neurologically intact. That was announced yesterday, and making positive progress. So the Bills are going to go ahead and play this weekend. Sometime later today, the NFL is going to figure out all this home field advantage business. I don't, and that's all I really know. There are 3 scenarios out there, none of which involve the local squad. Of course, the Dolphins, who are just barely hanging on to dear life. The other story about this, because you do have to move on with these other NFL teams. So here are the scenarios that were reported. This is from Yahoo. Scenario 1, Buffalo and Kansas City both win or tie in Week 18. Buffalo versus Kansas City AFC Championship game at a neutral site. Hey, why not here? Well, wait. If it came to that. Never mind. Scenario 2, Buffalo and Kansas City both lose in Week 18. That would be bad for the Dolphins, by the way. They need Buffalo to beat New England. And Baltimore wins or ties. A Buffalo versus Kansas City AFC Championship game would be at a neutral site. Buffalo and Kansas City both lose and Cincinnati wins, and a Buffalo or Cincinnati versus Kansas City AFC Championship game would be at a neutral site. Furthermore, if Baltimore defeats Cincinnati in Week 18, it will have swept the divisional opponent Bengals, but will not be able to host a playoff game because Cincinnati will have a higher winning percentage, having played 1 fewer game. There's even more, but they're going to have an online meeting. I might be having it right now, as a matter of fact. And stay tuned, as we like to say in the business. Something else that's come up, and I've debated a few people about this in a friendly manner, by the way, was the coverage of the incident. While this was going on, I was actually looking to see what people were saying on social media, which I realize is kind of dumb, but I was really curious because I don't know how many people who were commenting really understand what's going on in a live broadcast, and especially at a moment that no one prepares for. I can promise you, of the interminable amount of production meetings that I have been a part of, we never sat down once and said, let's talk about what's going to happen if a player suffers a near fatal heart attack in the middle of a game following a hit. Okay, go. You don't even really talk about injury scenarios. You just sort of work with them. And I've had my share of backboards and guys knocked out and guys who have to be carted off because of an injury. They might be conscious, but it might be an ankle or a leg injury that's too severe to move the person. And what you do in these situations is, number one, you never speculate on the injury. You can say, ooh, that looks like a knee, ooh, his ankle rolled. Oh, he got hit in the head. Or, oh, he's holding his arm. That's clear. But you can't play doctor. And it is tempting. And I always joke that I'm an amateur trainer because I've seen so many people get hurt. But I've also seen enough people get carried off on stretchers. The other thing I think about in these situations is somebody's family or friends who are watching, whether it's just a small streaming audience or, national or worldwide television. If you sit around and go, well, he's unconscious. I think you got to be careful with that. So that's the first thing. You don't play doctor. That's what the trainers and doctors are supposed to do. 2 is you got to be accurate. Make sure you get the right player to identify, which this was obviously easy to do. But that's why a good broadcaster will hold off on identifying an injured player or hold off on, say, an auto accident at a big race. They'll hold off until they know exactly the car, until they know exactly the player. That's so basic, but yet you'd be surprised. Now, they cut to commercials several times during the long period where Hamlin was on the field being, and this literally saved, as it turns out. And some people were upset about that. All right, several practical reasons going into that. Number one, if you've ever, and I know you've watched football games or events where everything comes to a halt while an injured player is attended to, strictly from a cold-hearted television standpoint, there is no better time to burn a commercial block than right then. You don't really want to see somebody suffer on the field, do you? I don't. So when someone gets an injury, whether it's a minor injury, so-called minor injury, or something as unbelievable as what happened the other night, you take a break. This was so unusual and so unexpected that they took several breaks. And I think, and I'm going to speculate here, but I think it's an educated guess. What's happening in that television truck is they don't have a lot of information to go on. They know who it is. Joe Buck reported there was CPR being done, but that's all you know. You can't say it's a heart attack. You don't know what it is, okay? So you've got to dial it back. At the same time, I can pretty much assure you that the TV truck, which has a producer and a director and a lot of people in there, all trying to manage this chaos. You've got an associate producer telling the producer, hey, we can go to break here if you need it. You've probably got management now phoning in or maybe even texting and going, hey, why don't you take a break here? In other words, there's a lot going on from the television perspective, all while this drama plays out on the field. As an announcer, you can only say so much. And after a while, I think them laying out was the right thing to do. Maybe they thought by going to different people, you get a different perspective. Maybe you get an angle you hadn't seen before. I don't think the coverage was bad at all. And I held no dog in this fight. All right, I don't work for them anymore. So, but this is a very difficult position. I learned under the great Dr. Jerry Punch how to handle things like backboard incidents when a player, they're concerned about a player having a neck or back injury, or when a player is knocked unconscious and they go through all the precautions of taping him down and removing the face mask. And Doc patiently explained to me step by step, because he is a doctor, and actually before he got into broadcasting, ran emergency rooms, and is also, some of you already know this, but he is credited with saving, I think, 3 lives in his days as a pit reporter on NASCAR broadcast by literally being the first guy on the scene and doing what was necessary to keep the driver alive until the rest of the response team was able to catch up. So there's no better source in broadcasting than that man. And he taught me what to say and how to phrase it so you'd be right and you wouldn't speculate. They unscrew the face mask so they can communicate with the player. Look in his eyes to see, hey, is this, where are his eyes? Are they rolled back in his head? Is there, something they need to do? They need to be able to speak to him. They need to be able to perhaps get to his face and see if there's any damage there. You knew that was going to happen. It's a truck that pulled outside the house. Even worse if it rings the doorbell, the driver. Hope he doesn't, or she doesn't. All right. Hey. Any hoodles. All of that is going on. Why they do the strap down movement. They don't want anything moving, all of that. Now, this is a little bit of a different case. but he still got the full backboard treatment and all of that while they did CPR and brought him back. And then off he goes. The other thing that came out of this was, well, why didn't they just empty the stadium? Are you kidding me? What's the first priority here? Get him an unobstructed trip to the hospital. And that hospital isn't around the corner. The stadium is downtown Cincinnati. UC Hospital is a little outside of downtown. Now, with a police escort, they're going to get there in just a handful of minutes. But it's not an immediate ride, or it's not one of these like college campuses that has a hospital. Some of them have a teaching hospital. They can just take the injured player right there. That doesn't always happen either. I had an air rescue once at the University of Maryland. A young man was injured in a Maryland football game. They were worried about it being a neck injury. They got him off to the side, out of the stadium, but University of Maryland doesn't have a hospital. So they literally, all of a sudden, a helicopter comes and they airlift him to a hospital in Maryland. And he might end up being okay. So you have to try to appreciate the broadcaster's perspective here. You're not prepared for this. You're not prepared for what turned out to be a near-death experience. So I hope, and I realize that might not have been what was going through your mind. Well, some people, it was going through their minds how it was being handled. But I'll defend them for the way they did this. It is awkward. It is painful. Your thoughts maybe are wandering a little bit, worried about the young man's family. His mother was at the game, his teammates, all of that. As for the decision to postpone the game, people are going, why did it take so long? Well, hindsight being the benefit here, you just can't go, okay, we're stopping in this situation. Because, again, you've got to talk to the teams. You got to talk to the coaches. You got to find out what's on the minds of these guys and specifically, directly from them. Don't assume. We might be thinking, well, of course they're shaken and they don't want to play. Yeah, I agree with that. But they need to find that out to be sure. Secondly, the point I just made. If you go, okay, we're calling the game, whoop, everybody goes out at once, you have a traffic jam you don't need in a situation where the number one priority is getting somebody out of there as safely and quickly as possible. So by holding everybody back for a little while, that's fine. They have to consult the commissioner. Again, I'm sure that's just one text or phone call or several. But I want to hear from the players and I want to hear from the coaches. As far as they were told to warm up for 5 minutes dispute, that's a he said thing. ESPN stands by its story. The NFL says we didn't do it. Pick your side. I don't have any knowledge on it. So I'm okay with the amount of time it took for them to make a rational, not rushed decision. 1 hour wasn't going to make any difference in the timeline of starting or not starting the game. The only timeline that mattered was for Damar Hamlin and getting him the medical help he needed, which it appears he has gotten. So that's all I have to say about all of this. It'd be really curious to see how the Bills respond. I can't imagine what that's like. I have seen people. I remember seeing it a couple times at Dania Highline. I remember being at a basketball game in Morgantown where somebody ended up not living. He didn't survive a heart attack. He was up in the bleachers not far from where we were seated broadcasting the game, and the man didn't make it. I mean, these things do happen. I remember at Highline, it would happen sometimes in the 80s when, all of a sudden, somebody is down and here comes the paramedics to try to save their life. It's a part of our life and it's a grim part of life. This was especially grim because we could watch it if we chose to. So the Miami Dolphins and their problems. Yeah, during the winning streak, I wasn't on, and during the losing streak, I haven't been on. But can we just point out one fact that just about every one of those wins, if not all of them, came against bad teams or mediocre teams? Can we bring that up? And then as soon as they started losing, why? They were playing better teams. What does that tell you? Now, yes, they have the win over Buffalo early in the season, and that's their signature win for the year. I don't think beating New England is any great difficulty, although maybe now it will be. Well, they just did lose, but they beat them earlier in the year. They're lucky to get the Jets because the Jets, if there's not a team in worse shape than the Dolphins in the AFC, it would be the Jets. At this point, they may ask Namath to come back to play for a few snaps. I mean, why not? He can't be any worse than Zach Wilson. And for all his goofing around off the field, Namath had a positive on-the-field attitude when he played. So I think the Dolphins are going to be fortunate here. The wild card, naturally, when you don't have this all in your hands, is how will Buffalo respond against New England? And for that matter, how is New England going to take the game? They need to win. So, and as far as Tua, I've talked to some people about that. I live in a neighborhood loaded with Dolphins fans and just spoke to a few really big time fans. They're telling me they want to see Tua Tagovailoa retire. Again, not being a doctor, I can somewhat safely speculate that 3 concussions in a short period of time is not good for any human being, no matter how strong you are, how much you want to continue to play. And we don't even know if he wants to continue to play, and it's his life and his business. But I was at that Packers game and couldn't believe what I saw in the second half of some of the mistakes a normally accurate quarterback makes. Remember, he had a pretty high touchdown to interception ratio. It was very, very good. And the last 2 passes, the interceptions, were just shockingly bad. Was there a problem there? I don't know. And it's, again, he knows it. The neurologists know it. I don't know what to do. If I'm his friend, I know what I would tell him, which would be to walk away. Because this is still a young man, a parent, a husband, a son, who could live a good life, I hope, and hopefully not in 10 or 15 years develop CTE symptoms and then lose control of his life as some have. I don't want that. You shouldn't want that. Are the Dolphins better when he plays? Of course they are. But I think we've grown up. And I know there's a bunch of people out there that say rub some dirt on it and get him back out there. We need to win. No, you don't. You don't. Not that way anymore. So it's an interesting decision to be made. It's his decision, not the Dolphins, not his coaches, not his neighbors. It is his decision with whomever he wants to consult with. It's going to be more drama for this team in the offseason. And maybe even the postseason if they're able to get in, which I think they have a shot. If Buffalo puts up an inspired performance and dedicates it to DeMar Hamlin, then they'll beat New England. New England is just so-so, and apparently their quarterback is poison. If you took Tua and put him with the Patriots or put his attitude with Mac Jones, then you'd have, Mac Jones would probably be a pretty good quarterback. But apparently his attitude stinks, as does Zach Wilson's. Not sure why, but there you have it. So it's good to be back. I wanted to mention, is there something else? No, I think we're good. The Marlins signed somebody who I actually have heard of in John Segura. That's good. That shows maybe an interest in winning 75 games this coming season. That's a step up. It's a step up in the right direction. I don't think they're going to sign Carlos Correa, though, and I'm not sure anybody will. Now, if somebody will. Somebody will roll the dice on him and put the X-rays in a desk and sort of, the MRIs, whatever it is, sort of forget about it. Do want to mention Dania, now Dania Beach Highlight, but you know it as Dania Highlight. Dania Beach Highlight, we're in the middle of a 2-month season, and there are these special championship partidos, which is just 2 teams, no double points, 2 players versus 2 players. And we had a brilliant one last night that came down to the last point. It's not winning by 2, which what you do in volleyball, but not in highlight. And it was spectacular. We had a blast, and we're doing it again tonight. First game is 7:00. This will be the last game on the card. So also, Dania has a YouTube channel, Dania Beach Highlight. So if you can't be there, you can either watch it live or participate in a chat or just catch it later. And please subscribe to that channel and to me as well. Thank you for the 900 not subscriptions, but people who have liked my page. That really makes me feel good, and it kind of reignited my desire to come back to this. For the national title game, I have to think it's going to be Georgia. I sort of suspected Ohio State was going to hang around, but I didn't. Obviously, nobody could have forecasted that brilliant drive by Georgia, and then Ohio State bouncing right back with their great quarterback and having the opportunity to kick. I'm glad the Atlanta Falcons took down that stupid-ass tweet of theirs that they put up. Here's how you win a game at our little rich person stadium when Their kicker kicked a game winner from longer than the kick attempted by Ohio State, or no, actually shorter. And they actually mocked the kid. They took it down, which was quick. But I mean, that's the kind of thing that gets somebody, if not fired, at least suspended for a week in their social media department for staggering insensitivity on their part. That's just brainless. Why you would do that to a kid, I don't know. Well, another truck is pulled up outside the house that says FedEx on it. We are expecting a package, so it might be a good time to get out of here before the dog starts barking again. Anyway, I'm Dave LaMont. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate you hanging with me, and I'll try to be back a lot more often. I think it's too late to say Happy New Year, but if you look behind me over this shoulder, Christmas tree is still up. I'm hard line about that. Actually, my wife's out of town. I'll make her do it. She knows. By the way, this isn't some, oh, you're a horrible husband. No, this is just part of living with me. I hang on to these things. I hate it when the lights go down around the neighborhood, and pretty soon we'll start seeing Christmas trees waiting to be picked up. Sad. I don't like that. So I'm going to hang on as long as I possibly can. Take care. Talk to you soon.